I'm a 26-year-old male, and this story took place about 3 years ago, when I just turned 23. I moved into a brand new house at the time. I was and still am a CNA, a certified nursing assistant. I make really good money, so living on my own is manageable. In fact, decently comfortable. My new house was absolutely beautiful. 2 floors, a basement, and an attic. Admittedly, the house was quite big for just me, but I really didn't mind it. So after the first 2 weeks when I had moved everything into my house, everything was going fairly well, besides reoccurring nightmares. I always thought it was weird because I never had nightmares, but I was also finally living alone, so maybe that was the cause. Well, the scary story begins here. I woke up from one of my nightmares around 2 in the morning, absolutely petrified, and it seemed like my power was out, because my TV was off, and I never turned it off before bed. So that freaked me out. As I lay awake in my pitch-dark room trying to fall asleep, I shit you not, I hear, on my bedroom door. I live alone, and have no pets. What the fuck? My heart is racing, and I'm nearly shitting myself. By the way, I grew up in a tough living situation, so I had a baseball bat underneath my bed. Whew, I think. Until I realized my aluminum bat is in my truck. My heart sank as I heard again, interrupting my thought at this point. I'm shaking and on the verge of tears. I wait 5 minutes, hiding in my dark room, waiting for something to happen. I finally grow some balls and open my bedroom door. My hallway light is on. As I look around the dim area, there is absolutely nothing, until I see an elderly man peeking his head from the end of the hallway staircase. I fucking screamed and just froze in place, and the old man tried to run down the stairs, and then I heard several thumps and crashing noises, and the most horrific yell I've ever heard. I'm upstairs, literally shitting myself, locked in my bathroom, calling 911. The police arrived and had to call an ambulance, because when the old man fell, he broke his tailbone and arm. The police told me that the old man was a Vietnam vet and had extreme PTSD. He thought my house was his, and he thought I was the intruder. The old man was identified as a manic dementia PTSD patient. He had a knife on him while he was arrested. Imagine if I'd have opened my bedroom door that night. After that, I got some roommates, and I only hope the best for that suffering old man. I still get shivers thinking about it. I never really knew what happened to the old man afterwards, because I didn't press charges. Remember, kids, lock your doors no matter what. I was a CNA, a nursing assistant for 20 years. I have many tales. Here's one of them. I had a patient, male, mid-50s, in the nursing home for non-life-threatening things. Let's say he made poor decisions on what he put in his body on a daily basis. One night, he began screaming incessantly, which was unusual for him. Normally he was shy and withdrawn around most, though I did get him to come out of his shell a bit. I rushed into his room to see what was going on, and he was screaming about demons coming to kill him. I looked around the room and of course saw nothing, and tried to gentle his fears. He kept babbling about demons, pointing to a corner of the room, and asking me if I could see them. I told him that I could not, but I was sorry that he did. I explained that while this seemed very real to him, there was nothing there. I went to get him a nice warm bowl of oatmeal, hoping that filling his belly with some hot food would relax him. As I'm preparing it in the microwave, I hear the sounds of several sets of feet running down the hallway. This is never a good sign. I throw open the kitchenette door to see nurses and aides running into my male patient's room. I immediately follow suit, and run down there too, afraid of what I would see, but my gut already knew. My patient had died in the few minutes I was out of his room, both hands gripping the bed rails. Yes, it was that long ago. He had a look of horror on his face that still haunts me to this very day. I can't explain the sheer terror etched in his face. Most people, when they die, their facial muscles relax and go slack. His face held all the terror he must have experienced on passing. We had to peel his fingers away from the handrails, one by one. I was so upset that two of my fellow CNAs took over the task of cleaning and positioning his body. Sir, I can't remember your name, but I am sorry things happened like that for you. I will never forget it. I'm a CNA. This story takes place at work. Yesterday I was pulled to the dementia unit. Getting pulled means they had a call-off, so they take a CNA from a well-staffed floor and move them to fill the vacancy elsewhere. I rarely get pulled to the dementia unit, so I'm not super familiar with those patients. In order to get from my normal floor down to the dementia floor, I have to go through a back stairwell that requires an access code. That's important. I always take the stairs rather than the elevator, but I only ever feel uncomfortable in this one particular stairwell. It just gives me the fucking creeps, and I rush down the stairs as fast as I can. Again, I never get that feeling in any of the other stairwells. So I get down to the dementia floor and I'm going about my day, doing normal shift stuff. I'm assigned to the back section of one of the halls, and the last room in that section also gives me the creeps. No idea why, I just get a weird feeling whenever I'm in that room. So I'm in that room, providing care to the patient that's in there, and she goes, "He's here today, and he's mad. You were in his space." Mind you, this patient has dementia. They say all kinds of odd things, so I just brushed it off and went about my business. Fast forward to the end of the shift. I've given report to the oncoming CNA, and now I'm just chatting with her until I can clock out. She asks if anyone got really agitated, or if we had any issues on the shift that she should be aware of. I told her that everyone was pretty chill, except for that one woman in the back room. I told the CNA what she said about him being angry or whatever. The CNA looks puzzled, and then says, "Did you take the elevator to get here, or did you take the stairs?" "The stairs," I replied. "Do you know why that stairwell has a keypad lock on it?" she asks me. "Nope, no idea. I always assumed it was just to keep visitors from wandering around and getting lost." Here's the story that CNA told me about that back room and that stairwell. There was a patient who was in that back room. He was a bitter, angry old man. Many of our dementia patients are. He was known to kick and bite nurses and CNAs. However, he apparently had no chair or bed alarms. Alarms we attach to patients that alert us if they try to get up and move around without us knowing. So one day, when things were busy, he snuck off the unit and hanged himself in that stairwell. That's why we now have a code lock, so that a patient can never gain access to it again. Apparently, it's an unwritten rule that you do not use his stairwell, or he'll get angry. According to the CNA, any patient that gets put in his room ends up seeing his ghost. Weird things happen in that room. TV won't work, lights go on and off, the vitals machine will randomly stop functioning, etc. So somehow, that patient knew I had taken the bad stairs, and knew he was upset about it. It totally creeped me out, and needless to say, I will not be taking those stairs again if I can avoid it. Imagine my surprise when the local hospice called me and asked if I would be able to do a home cleansing for a patient. As one of the few witchy types living in a very rural Christian town, it wasn't often that I was consulted for spiritual assistance. Well, ever, actually. I agreed to meet with his nurse at hospice and discuss the matter. Now I'm thinking, this is just something the patient wants, and they're humoring him. So further imagine my surprise when I arrived to a meeting with 3 nurses, 2 directors, several other staff members, and the hospice spiritual advisor. These people go on to tell me that this patient and his home are basically under attack by some dark force. Several nurses refuse to even go in this house anymore. They've all seen things yeet across the room, and suffered ill physical effects there, such as headaches and respiratory distress. The patient's wife placed open Bibles about the home, only to watch them slam shut and take flight slamming into the walls. The minister, though not overwhelmingly happy to see me, put his hands up and fully admitted there was a really big problem, and he had no clue what to do about it. So now I'm like, okay. Sure, let's see what we've got. When I agreed, a nurse gave me a cross that had been blessed by a priest and told me to keep it. I'm gonna speed through the malevolent spirit here, because, believe it or not, it's nowhere near the freakiest part of this story. Long story short, all accounts were absolutely accurate. The place was totally screwed up. While moving through the house, conducting a home cleansing, it became so hard to breathe that it was hard to even get the words out. In the 11th hour, all people present felt this massive whoosh, and then the patient's wife collapsed. She ended up being just overwhelmed, I think. I stayed for the rest of the afternoon. Eventually, the hospice people even left. Everyone involved felt things were significantly better, especially the patient. So we chatted and visited happily. I don't really like to discuss my views with those who may not share them, but they asked who I thought had been haunting them. Without going too into detail, I said I think it was just some sort of dark energy, not anything that ever was a living human. The wife remarked that she always suspected that it was that guy that stabbed him. She went on to spin quite the tale about a man who'd once stabbed her husband in a long-ago bar fight. The perpetrator had gone to prison and then later died. At the time, I thought they were way off about that, but didn't discuss it further. But later that evening, I revealed the day's crazy events to my husband and mother-in-law. When I reached the part about the stabbing, she went pale. She asked the name of the patient, and I told her. The person who had stabbed him was my mother-in-law's brother, my husband's uncle. Now let me further mess with your head by totally glossing over that fact, because guess what? That's not the freaky part either. After that day, I paid the patient Andy numerous visits, just to check in on him, evaluate the spiritual state of his house. I even did some tarot readings for his family. All remained well for the rest of his life, which was about 6 months. It was a sunny day when Andy's wife called to let me know he'd passed peacefully. I spoke to her quietly, and when I got off the phone, my little girl toddled up to me. She wasn't even 2, and had of course been strictly protected from any and all knowledge of the spiritual assistance I'd been providing. She knew nothing of the visits, nor the phone call I'd just received. I mean, she could barely speak complete sentences. Nonetheless, she motioned for me to bend down, and I did. She placed her little hand on my cheek and gave me a beautiful smile. And then she said, "Andy says thank you." When I was 6 years old, I loved fire. It fascinated me. It still does. Around Halloween, we carved pumpkins. I got a little bit too excited and couldn't wait for my mom to help light the candle, so I sneaked away with one of them. And dumb 6-year-old me thought, hey, I can show him how much of a grown-up I am. I can light this candle myself. Well, for a reason I don't really remember, I lit the candle behind our couch and got a little bit too close. My shirt lit on fire, and I ran into the kitchen where the rest of my family was. My brothers both started to scream, and my mother ripped the burning shirt off my body. All the while, my stepdad was playing World of Warcraft. It took a few hours to get to the hospital because my mom and stepdad started fighting. Fast forward, I'd been in the hospital for 2 weeks now, and had multiple operations behind me. Apparently, 3 plastic-like threads got burned into my skin and had to be removed. I also had 2 skin grafts, one time from my butt, which didn't work, and one successful time from my thigh. After these operations, I got introduced to my new roommate, a kid who was there for a reason I didn't know. Another week goes by. I became friends pretty quickly with my new roommate. We played, watched TV, and did everything we could do while being in a hospital. Our families tried to visit us as much as possible if work would allow it. Since my mom usually worked a lot of overtime, she asked her boss if she could get some days off, which thankfully he agreed to. So in the last week of my hospital stay, my mom visited me every day. And on the last day, she also got to stay the night in the hospital room with us. Now on this last night, I noticed a shadow on my bed. I got scared and screamed. My mom woke up immediately and turned the light on. And there he was, my roommate. He had a knife in his hand. Somehow he'd managed to hide it from the nurses. According to my mom, he whispered the whole time, saying he doesn't want me to leave, and that he could make me his best friend if he wanted to. Turned out he was 14, had some kind of mental illness, and was there because he had tried to kill himself. So yeah, former hospital roommate and former friend, let's never meet again. A while ago, I got a job at a small hospital just out of town. I was excited as it was my first job I'd been offered since my schooling. It was just casual work, but I was still ecstatic at the chance to work there, as the money was great, and it was the place that I did my practicum at. Most of the time, I would do 12-hour shifts, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Sometimes I'd be given the 3 to 11 p.m. shifts. I didn't care for those much. I was used to working late from my previous job, but I had to drive a lot further to get home from this place, and the late shifts are very slow usually. Another reason I didn't like them was because there was not very many people on staff, and I would get lonely. Usually 4 nurses, 1 admin, which is me, and the emergency doctor. That's it. Now being in a small hospital like this one, you see some pretty strange things come in. Some people can't make it into the city, and so we've had the emergency STARS helicopter have to drop in now and then. I've seen terrible things like whole families die from accidents on the curved country roads. I've even had people bring in animals in desperation, as there was no vet nearby that was open. This one particular night around 10 p.m., I was sitting talking with one of the RNs about a patient's chart, but mostly just wasting time until I can go home at 11. The hospital was quiet, and I'd only checked around 6 people into emergency at this point. I remember I was eating my yogurt, and I heard a strange noise coming from the main doors. I saw a man walking towards us. He looked mostly normal, but he had a long coat on, which was strange as it's the middle of summer, and even though it's dark out, it's still relatively warm. The RN next to me sighed and got up to go to the bathroom, leaving me to tend to our new arrival. As he drew closer, the strange sound got louder, and something caught the light. He was dragging something behind him that I couldn't quite make out, but I assumed it was metal by the noise it was making. It sent a shiver up my spine. He stopped at the desk, and I could see his eyes were wide, his pupils big, his face was pale, and he looked like he hadn't slept in a while. I'd seen this look many times, and immediately associated it with someone who was high on something. He leaned on the desk and ran his fingers through his hair, pulling at it and grinding his teeth. When people like this come in, They're usually looking for drugs. Most of the time they will complain of a migraine or fibromyalgia, anything we can't prove the contrary of. I processed him as usual and noticed he was getting more and more irritable as time passed. Eventually, when I finished and pointed him toward the waiting area, he asked how long it would be. Knowing that the on-call doc had gone on a quick break, I estimated a half hour. That's when his whole demeanor changed. The anger on his face was obvious as he stormed over to the waiting area, which is a room in between emergency and the front desk area with doors. As he walked away, I got a glance of what he was dragging, and I came to the quick realization that it was an axe. I panicked and almost called the code over the paging system, but I didn't want him to realize. I called the police on my cell phone and ran down the hall to signal to the nurses that we had an issue. The police would have to come from 2 towns over, which takes on average 20 minutes. Of course, as we are small girls, we didn't want to go near him. He was tall and muscular. Even all combined, we probably wouldn't stand a chance. I calmly walked back to the front desk and paged the doctor, asking him to call me. I waited and waited, but never got a response. I watched the man getting more agitated, and soon he started yelling and asking for help. I hid from him, not wanting him to come back to me, and we devised a plan to lock him in the waiting area. The glass is reinforced and the doors are heavy, so it should hold him in there until the police arrived. The plan went down without a hitch, until the man realized what we'd done. He started screaming and throwing chairs around the room. He was alone, so we didn't have to worry about him hurting anyone. Then he started using his axe on the door and glass to the front desk area, where we were all standing and watching. I've never been so terrified in my life, and what made it even worse was the fact that he was making some headway on the door. It was at this time that the emergency doctor walks in the front door of the hospital, sipping on a drink from the Max over the road. He saw us all huddled behind the desk and quickly took charge of the situation. He disappeared towards the back entrance of emergency, the way ambulances bring patients in. He unlocked the door of the waiting room and tackled the man to the floor when he wasn't looking. He then proceeded to tie him up with cable ties and sat on his back until the cops arrived. I was so thankful for having the young, physically fit doc with us on that night. I bought him coffee every time our schedules crossed as a thank you, but I don't think it would ever be enough. I decided to never work late shifts again. I'm now a Monday through Friday 9 to 5 worker. Much safer that way. I'm a United States Navy veteran who has seen many continents around the world, and have trained for scenarios in time of war. I spent a lot of time out in the woods, even in the desert. Many of our training exercises dealt with anything from wildlife to terrorist snipers. This is important, as my training will come into play later. So I'm 2 years out of the service, back in my hometown. I decide to get into the medical field. Not what I was ever planning to do. But hey, your decisions change based on circumstance. I become an emergency medical courier. What's that, you ask? Basically, hospitals and retirement homes run out of supplies and meds like you wouldn't imagine. Oftentimes, I'm delivering blood or surgical tools to an ER while someone is on the operating table from a gunshot wound or stabbing. There must be a lot of gangs in my town, 'cause I sure as fuck stay busy. Sometimes I'll receive a delivery for organs even. You get the idea. Well, here I am at home with my baby boy, and get a call to pick up some meds and drop them off at a facility over 3 hours away. I get the drugs after crawling out of bed and stumbling to my feet, and begin to drive the back roads of Indiana. I eventually arrive at the building dimly lit up in the middle of a forest. I have my service pistol on my hip at all times, as I have my concealed weapons permit. So far, pretty uneventful. I have the nurse sign for the meds and hastily make my exit. I am now outside and hear rustling and branches breaking. Thinking to myself it's probably just a deer, I continue walking to my car. I can see my car about 20 feet away. I turn around to be greeted by a monstrous 7-foot-tall beast. A bear. It had to weigh at least 500 pounds. It was closing in on me. I reach back behind my waist and fire my Beretta 9mm 3 times. I'm certain each bullet reaches its mark. Damn. No effect. I started running. I reach my car. Oh fuck, did I lock it? Why? I'm frantically tossing my keys on a lanyard around, grabbing all the wrong ones, trying to get into my car. This fucking beast reaches me. I quickly fall to the ground and hide under the car, and don't move. I lay still as I hear it scouring around the car, scratching and clawing, trying to reach me. Terrified, I scream at it loudly. Stupid, I know. No effect. I fire 2 more shots in the bear's direction. Not a good shot from this angle, and no room under the car. 1 bullet grazes the monster, and the other strikes its leg. The bear scurries off back into the woods. I barely have a signal on my phone, but I'm still able to call the police. A squad car shows up in about 20 minutes. My adrenaline is still rushing and blood is pumping fast. I didn't even realize it while I was under the car, but I had been mauled. Blood running down my leg as the officer shines his mag light to examine me. Medical arrives and patches me up as I make my full report to the officer. Apparently, it was illegal to fire my weapon in city limits, but he told me since my life was in danger, he would only issue me a warning. I thanked him and asked if I could go. There were 2 things I learned that night. Do not fuck with Mother Nature, and I'm never going back to Kokomo ever again. Hey guys and ladies, thanks for watching. Links to all my shit are down in the description. Be good to animals, even people. Sit.
And now, moments from a deer's life.
Wow, this grass is really good.
Man, it really is. Right? There's like little mushrooms in there too. What was that? Oh, it's nothing.
Anyway, yeah, we should come down here more often.
Shh, did you hear that? Yeah, I did. I don't see anything though.
Oh shit, run!
Shit.
Okay, wait, false alarm. Did you guys hear? Julie got shot.
Oh my god, I heard that. So sad.
I mean, these rifles with the high-powered scopes. I mean, damn, give us a chance.
Yeah, they're up in some bucket 20 feet in the air. Now they got piss all over them. What was that?
I don't see anything. I heard that a long time ago, these tree people, they had to like make their own weapons out of wood. They'd like chuck a spear at you or shoot an arrow.
Hell, those are the kind of odds I want.
I hear that.
Preach. Who's that? Oh, my boyfriend's calling me. His name's Buck, and he's really handsome. Ooh.
Ooh la la.
You go, girl.
Shh, did you hear that?
This has been Moments from a Deer's Life, or whatever I called it a minute ago. Scout, Snemak, Barksbus, Herish.
My stomach's gonna be talking this whole time. There's fucking cars, there's a goddamn plane. My stomach is going fucking nuts. Like, was all this shit happening before I started? Nobody cares, bro. Nobody cares.